Wake up, really gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some good, some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Yeah. Set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up.
All right, everyone. Welcome to everyone joining in. So excited to see all of you starting to log in. I'm seeing a bunch of people on YouTube. Hey, everyone. Seeing a bunch of people on LinkedIn as well. I know we're broadcasting on Facebook, on Twitch. We're broadcasting on multiple places. So excited to have you. Aaron and I are thrilled that you're joining us today from really across the globe. And I think that's what's so special about this event. This is an event by legal professionals, for legal professionals, and it's making a huge difference. We just got off our first block, our first session on mental health, and we had hundreds of people joining it from around the globe. The comments were just exploding every couple of minutes. People were just resonating so much, and I'm really excited. Aaron and I are both extremely excited for what this event is going to be, for the kind of genuine, authentic conversations that we're going to have in here. We already have a lot of speakers waiting, ready to go. We can't wait to get started. I thought I'll take a few moments to recap a little bit about what we discussed in the first block. We talked a lot about mental health and how it's kind of pushed down in the structural way of how the legal profession works. We all sort of put on a smile. We're all expected to put on a happy face and be professional, show up, do the work. And things like mental health is just shoot to the side. It's not something that's ever brought up. But we are creating a space now where it's okay to say that. Where we're creating a space for self-compassion by giving yourself acceptance, giving yourself love, and actually asking for help is not a bad thing. In fact, we want you to ask for help. And I think we heard so many voices of people who said, please ask for help. Please get that extra support. We're here for you. We're here to support you. And I think just the overall tone of it was amazing. We did some live activities. People were sending out messages of care, of love, of checking in to their friends, their family, and they were getting responses live, and they were gushing about the kind of responses they were getting back. Like, thank you so much for checking in. I really needed to hear that today. And we're going to continue that energy going. And finally, we talked about a challenge. How do we change the structural issues we have in this profession? And we did an activity together. We can't wait to do that in this session as well. And that's really what Aaron and I are here for. This event is our gift to a profession that's giving us a lot. It's a way to shake things up. It's a way to bring up questions that I think have been hiding in the shadows, and really push the envelope. Have those sorts of discussions that are happening in the hallways, that are happening online on people's LinkedIn posts, the things that are not happening at the law firm, that isn't happening in the offices. We want to have that happen today. So thank you, everyone, for joining in. I'm going to turn it over to Aaron. But in the meantime, share with us in the comments, where are you joining in from? Emma, I see you here. It was great to see you in the last session as well. Good to see you. If you want, please share with us, where are you joining in from? It'd be great to hear from you. Aaron, over to you.
Yeah, no, I'm curious to see that. We know we've got people from Canada, the US, some from Europe as well, despite the timing. So let us know in the chat where you are from. As Della mentioned, we're here not just to have some great talks, and you're going to hear from some amazing speakers today. Lena's going to kick us off shortly. She's fantastic. And honestly, if there's one I'm excited for, it's this general session today. We've got such amazing, powerful, outspoken women who I wish were leading this profession because they are so incredible there. But the key really is, why on earth are Dalla and I here, as people not women in law? We're both in law, but certainly not women in law. We're here to listen. And we truly believe that we need more men, and that's actually what Lena is talking about. We need the men listening, understanding what's going on, understanding those different perspectives that we don't always understand. It is so, so important. I think the theme for the mental health section earlier today was you're not alone. That's going to be a common theme here. I think so many of you are going to resonate with the various different speakers. Let me share my screen quickly here, and I see everyone in the chat chiming in. Amazing. Love to see we're already getting that conversation going. So what I want everyone to do is just hop over to menti.com. So you can do that on your phone, on your computer, and type in the code 14957819. We're just going to use this for a little bit of interactivity here, get the energy back up. It seems like we've got a great group today, but we know it's already, the afternoon, at least in some places, late morning in others, and I want to make sure that, people are getting that energy up. So menti.com on your phone or elsewhere, and 14957819. Everything here is anonymous. Here's my question for you. How are you feeling today? How are you actually feeling today? So as you can see, as people start responding, it's showing up there. I'll reveal the responses in a second, but it is purely anonymous. So give us the honest answer, not the answer you've been telling your colleagues or other people before that isn't the honest or authentic answer. So let's see how we're doing so far. Pretty good. All right, we're in a good mood, which is great. It's a Tuesday in Lawland, and if more than half the people or just about are pretty good, I'll take it. We've got a big group though, having a tough start to the day. No surprise there. And I hope this, at least you come out of this session today in better spirits somewhat. Maybe you'll feel more heard, more seen, realize you're not alone, or maybe it just is a boost to remember there's hope out there to drive forward some change. All right, we're gonna do a couple quick brain teasers just to get the brain juices flowing here, or whatever the right expression is. So I'm gonna head over here. So give me one sec. Here is the first one, and you can submit your response on Menti anonymously. So here's the first one. Two boxers are in a match scheduled for 12 rounds. It's pure boxing only. There's no kicking, there's no takedowns, whatever that means. One of the boxers gets knocked out after only 6 rounds, yet no man throws a punch. How is this possible? How is this possible? Let us know on Menti by submitting your answer. It's anonymous if you think you figured out the answer here. No man throws a punch, and yet there's no kicking, no takedowns. How is that possible? Dal, I don't think you've seen the answers. Do you know the answer, Dal, without admitting it? Or
I feel like it's gonna be one of those like dad joke type answers, like it was that all along type of thing. So that's what I'm feeling.
All right, we'll give you another 5-10 seconds to get those answers in if you're still thinking about it. And again, if you're guessing wrong, it's okay. The boxers are women. Yes, many of you got this right. Dal, we're here today to talk about women in law.
Of
and
course.
Yet we defaulted to the assumption that the boxers are men, perhaps because women are smart enough not to get CTE and destroy their brains for other people's attention. But yeah, that's the answer there. All right, this is called a rebus puzzle kind of thing. You've probably seen this. There's an expression here. Let me just move over quickly here. What is this trying to say? There's an expression here. Let us know in Menti if you can figure it out. None of these are easy, to be clear. Only 2 answers so far. This one's not easy. We'll give you another 5 seconds or so if you can figure this one out. Dal, any guesses?
Oh man, I'm so bad. I feel like my 6-year-old nephew can probably do this better than me. I'm gonna get it.
If you got it, if you submitted an answer, you're bang on here. What goes up must come down. What goes up must come down. Geez, that's good. That's not easy. All right, one last one to kick things off. Let me move to the next one here. Dal, how's this one going on your end?
I feel completely not prepared for this. Is it like, are these like waves of an ocean, like travel by a boat? I got no idea.
We're doing a little bit better. Got 6 people. All right, take another 5 seconds here if you can figure this one out. Dal, we've got 3 more days of this, or 2 more days of this, so we'll see how we do.
I'm gonna get better at this over the next 2 days.
Yeah, Wanda's got it in the comments, as did many here. Overseas travel. we got to get out of our literal lawyer brain zones. Not easy at all here. All right, so on that note, we're not here to do brain teasers all day. We're here for a much greater purpose. And I am so excited to introduce our first speaker who's kicking it off, Lena Yusufi. She's a lawyer, a mediator. She's the CEO of Y Law, which is the largest family law firm in Canada. She's been named one of the top 25 most influential lawyers in Canada, won all sorts of other awards. And she says that doesn't even come close to her biggest achievement and challenge, being a mom to toddler and incoming twins, because Lena is pregnant with twins right now. I'm a twin myself, and I always say, a lot easier to be a twin than to have twins. And I guess Lena's going to discover the reality there. But Lena, I'm done talking. It's women in law. So over to you. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you, everybody, for joining this session. I'm going to delve right into it. I was thinking about the whole concept, and there's so many things I can talk about, but I don't think anything is more authentic than your personal experience, and that kind of goes to the name of this seminar. So I'm going to get right into it. When I was 5 years old, my dad took me on a camping trip, and I remember one morning I just got up and I needed to use the washroom, and I approached the washroom. It was a public washroom, and there was a big lineup of people standing to get in, and I was the last one. And then I remember this strange guy. He came and approached me, and I said, "Hey, I have a washroom over there, and there's no lines. Do you want to go to that one?" And I followed him. To his cabin, and he lifted me up and put me up on his bed. And he gave me 2 pieces of chocolate, and he told me to hold them. And the next thing I know is he put his hand on my thighs. And as he touched my thighs, I just flashed back to what my dad kept on telling me. If a strange man comes and gives you chocolate, run and come to daddy and tell daddy that somebody gave you chocolate, and I'll take care of you. So that's exactly what I did. I actually went under his arm and I ran as hard as I could. I went to my dad and I told him what happened. He didn't let me see what happened after I told him. Rest assured, though, I knew that strange man was taken care of. And a day in my life, which was going to end up being probably one of the most traumatic experiences a female could experience, a transformational, horrible, traumatic experience, turned into this sense of safety and security, and that I was going to be okay. And in a way, that kind of feeling could only come from my dad. And that started planting seeds of security and protection in me. So I grew up being unafraid, because I knew that if I needed help, he was going to be there. When I was 14, and living in Iran, I'm sure a lot of people are reading the news on what's happening in Iran, but I lived through it. I lived through wars and oppression and all those things. And I remember going to school and taking a picture of my parents and family to school, which wasn't allowed. I don't know why. And in front of 30 students, my principal came and slapped me as hard as she could in my face, and told me that I was a bad kid. And, as you're kind of going through the stages of, moving from a child to an adult, an experience like that can really make you feel like you're bad and you're not deserving of love. And so I ran home and I cried in my dad's arms, and I said, I don't know why I have to wear scarves that go up to my knees. I don't know why I can't take a picture of you to school. I don't know why I'm worth half of the man. And I don't know why I should be sitting on the back of the bus with the other women as men sit at the front. And I really don't know why I can never become a judge or vote or drive. And within a month, he let go of his career. He let go of his money. He let go of everything that he had built up. And he had been set up as one of the most prominent architects in Iran. And my mom was also a university professor. He dropped everything and uprooted us and immigrated to Canada so that we could have a future. He started driving a taxi, and my mother started selling shoes. Sorry, I'm getting a bit emotional. Had I been there, had he not brought me here, I wouldn't be a lawyer. And if I was, right now the human rights lawyers in Iran are getting killed for just speaking about human rights. Had he not given up that life, I would never be here. I would have the same destiny as a lot of my sisters in Iran that are getting killed as we speak. As I grew up, I dated a lot of men that I shouldn't have dated, just like most other women. I had been physically, emotionally, and sexually abused in some of those relationships. And that was the product of me trying to find out who I was and who was the right person for me. I've never looked at myself as a victim because I wasn't brought up to feel powerless. Even though these things happen, they only make me stronger. But within those men that I dated, they were men who curiously wanted to enter into my world, and they wanted to learn how it felt to be a female. They wanted to explore everything that I had been told that I should be ashamed of. That started from exploring the power, creativity, and intelligence that's in being sexual and sex, and it went all the way to all these ideas that as women were looked at as more emotional than logical, and that when it comes to the practice of law, if you want to do a really big strong deal and a merger and an acquisition, you have to be so male, and you have to let go of all your empathy and compassion. And if you bring that feminine quality into those discussions, then somehow you're not going to do as good of a job as the next shark and things like that. So these men were the ones that allowed me to let go of those judgments and explore myself and tap into that power, regardless of how they felt. It was this sense of curiosity that gave me the power again to be where I am today. And my experience continues to, actually last night when I was sitting in the living room with my husband and I was telling him, I don't get nervous that much, but I'm nervous about tomorrow because the audience is lawyers, and lawyers can be very opinionated and critical. And I feel like anything I say, somebody's going to be disagreeing or offended. And I'm so worried because I haven't come up with what I'm going to talk about. And then, next thing you know, this morning he takes our toddler and tells her mommy's not here. He already, warmed up the basement. He put my laptop there and a cup of coffee. And he just woke me up and said, go downstairs for half an hour. You're going to figure out what you're going to have to say, which is the result of, which result is what you're hearing today. So I guess my point is, I have a few points. One is, no matter how much we as women may say that we can do it on our own, we don't need help, we're going to be fine. Maybe we will, but I can't help but think that there's some situations in life where it wouldn't have been possible for me to grow if it wasn't for the help of good men around me, if it wasn't for them giving me wings to fly, if it wasn't the synergy of the masculine and feminine powers creating something absolutely beautiful that you can't do on your own. These feelings are akin to, having children, for example. Like there's some things in nature that requires the men and the women working together to create something beautiful, and they can't do it on their own. And this whole advocacy of women being victims, and that it's us versus them, and the world is so unfair because there's a pay gap and there's a gender gap, which is all true, is no longer working. I think we need to shift our mindset to appreciating and honoring men and allowing them to help us, because there are those men who will help us get so much better at what we do if we allow them to do that. And so in my lived experience, those men include, and I'm speaking directly to men because I want you to know this, are the men in my career that mentored me, men who championed me, men who introduced me to people that I needed to be introduced to, and absolutely most importantly, men who understood that the legal profession is mainly designed by men and that there's very little space for women to thrive. And those men opened up some space for me as a lawyer, as a female, as a founder, as a businesswoman, to come into that space and introduce feminine business practices. Those men also didn't see me becoming a mother as some sort of a liability. They thought that it was an asset. And because of that sense of curiosity and open-mindedness, I was again able to grow. And I became a warrior instead of a nurturer. I became a goddess instead of somebody who's just here to make sure, like people get from A to B. I became the person I wanted to be while being a woman. So if there's any point that I have today regarding experiences and where I'm going right now, is that we need men. We need them badly. And it's really my hope that one day we no longer call these sessions Women in Law, because that just tells me that we're not equal yet. We have to separate women and have all these, seminars about how to advance our rights. And that moment or days when we're exactly equal, hopefully we can call these seminars People in Law, and everybody's just going to be equal and happy and live happily ever after. I did want to end by saying that when I talk about women and men, I'm talking about my lived experiences as a heterosexual woman who presents as woman. And of course, I have the ultimate respect for the LGBTQT plus community and how they perceive the world and what their lived experiences are and what discriminations they face. And I just wanted to acknowledge them and say that this is just my lived experience, and I mean no offense when I'm talking about male, female, women, and men. Thank you so much for listening to me, and enjoy the rest of this amazing summit.
Thanks, Lena. I've got a question for you, I guess, as a follow-up while we're here. There's an article, and I'll throw it in the chat in a second, where you basically say, when you started your own firm, you say, slowly I started implementing the things that people had called me crazy for, such as hiring women on mat leave or part-time, single moms, offering unlimited vacation to staff, digital presence. And basically all those things you did, they paid off, in spades. Why do you think people were telling you can't do these things, or that these aren't good decisions, even though like they're not just good for the people there, but they're also potentially beneficial, from a business standpoint? Like why do you feel like people were telling you couldn't do it? And I guess what are some of the benefits you've seen from some of these things you did to empower people that everyone said you were crazy for thinking about doing?
I think it goes back to not being given enough space in the profession to be a female and know what women need and how women thrive, right? Like the profession long time ago was designed by men, and there's very little space. So as long as I can create that space, because I know my girls, I know what we can do. I know for a fact that we don't live or perform like men, like in their way, like we do it our own way. So if I'm allowed to show what we can do by being given some flexibility, such as being able to love our kids or be mothers, we are going to work when they go to sleep. You just need to trust us. So again, it's been tough. It hasn't been an easy go, but with the support of men in my life, I've been able to kind of like grow these concepts and be the test kitchen, so that all the other firms or whoever's watching can see that this is working. You just have to give it a chance.
That makes so much sense. And one more question I guess I have for you here is, I think often people are in, and maybe I'm speaking for myself here, we sort of know what decision we need to make a change. Like we're in an environment that isn't right for us, so we know we want to be more authentic or do this or do that. And often there's a fear, holding us back. And I think I read somewhere where, when you started your own firm, like you had no money, basically, you were gambling completely on yourself. Like how did you say to yourself, like, I'm going to actually do this and not just think about doing it and not do it? Like how did you do that? And I guess what advice would you have for other people who are toying with one of these ideas but haven't done it yet?
Honestly, just breaking it into very small pieces, right? So I said, okay, like if for the next 6 months I have no business, I need $60,000 to spend money on. So I went to the bank and took a loan for $60,000, and I said, if this doesn't work out, I still have my degree and I can still go back to a firm and pay off this debt. It's not like, I'm going to be done for the rest of my life. If it does work out, then it's going to be great. And I think the one thing that a lot of people may not pay much attention to is, as opposed to every other professions, when you go out on your own from your firm, you're allowed to take your clients with you. And that's huge, because you start your business with full-on paying clients that came from the other firm. So actually, like for me, it wasn't tough. It was just kind of like losing that fear. And again, the support of my dad, who just kind of like loaned me the $60,000, which I actually paid back within the first month. It's all about, we as women have been trained to be afraid, and I think we need to lose that. And as long as we lose that, it's not that scary out there, as far as I'm concerned, anyway.
Yeah, that resonates a lot. I got one more question for you, I guess. What do you think is holding most men in this profession, especially men in power, back from helping and supporting women, whether as mentors, as sponsors, what have you? Is it a lack of realization about what it's like being a woman in law? Is it a lack of realization that like they feel like, oh, if I try to help, then am I doing something wrong? Like what would you tell them, I guess, or what do you think is holding them back, and what should they be thinking about if they're listening to this?
I think it's fear again, because they have a model that, I guess, like for our generation, it doesn't work anymore, but for them it works because it's a profitable model. And in the short term, like they see an advantage in hiring more men, or doing, masculine practices, because, men don't give birth, for example, and things like that. So they think that's working. So why should I, if it ain't broken, why should I fix it? And that again, like pushes out the women. I think all it takes is, number one, lawyers are risk averse. So first they need to see someone else who did it and was successful, which is what I'm trying to do. That's my purpose. Secondly, it's just communication and understanding and listening. Like I can't expect, I don't know how it feels to be a man. I don't know what goes on in your world, and I'm not expecting a man to know how it feels to be a woman. But if you actually take the time and sit down and give us a chance, we might just prove you wrong. It's like, it's the same concept as a 4-day work week as well. I'm sure every lawyer, most lawyers that I would talk to would laugh at me saying, what are you talking about? That means 20% reduction in profits. But when we did it, it was a 20% increase. Oh, actually 50% increase in profit. Like how did that happen? You may not understand, but if you sit down and talk to me, I'll tell you exactly why it works the way it does. It's the same thing for giving women a chance. You just have to let us prove it to you. Please let us do that.
Yeah, and my gut is law firms run by women, at least women or people with empathy, and women tend to be better at that, probably have less, fewer retention problems, more fulfillment for people. And I mean, especially for law firms in the last little bit, I hate always bringing things back to the bottom line because that's not how my brain works. But I know a lot of firms are thinking this way, like, well, it's dollars and cents. And I mean, there's just so many obvious benefits from thinking about treating your employees as people. And if half your employees at least are women, it probably makes some sense to start thinking about their perspective and not just assuming that, oh, everyone has a stay-at-home spouse and everyone is in this position and everyone, views the world the same way they do. We just know that's not true anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Very
So Lena,
cool.
I'll throw a link in the chat because I mean, you have accomplished so many impressive things. I know you're not going to be the one to say it, but I'm going to be the one to say it for sure. And just a great article on you and some of the amazing work you're doing with your firm, paving the way for so many people. Dowell, why don't you hop on here and we'll talk about the activity we're going to do next.
Oh yeah. Thank you so much for that amazing talk, Lena. The comment section has just been blowing up right now. I'm just hearing some great comments here. Patty gives a really interesting counterpoint. She says that men don't give wings; we have our own wings, and I do agree that we need to acknowledge and appreciate men who don't bind or clip our wings. Great point. Stark Solutions. They're saying that I was a sole woman lawyer in a firm when I started my career as a lawyer in Saskatchewan in 1992. That experience was awful, but it made me more determined than ever before to fight for those who feel that they have been silenced. So just some incredible stories coming out here. Thank you, everyone, for sharing this, and keep leaving comments as you're listening to everyone talking. There's a lot of hugs, a lot of well wishes going out from everyone in the comment section as well. So thank you for doing that. And I think this is part of the thing we got to do a lot more of, which is acknowledging and appreciating people who are champions, who are voices, who have supported us, mentored us, that sort of thing. And so I'd like to take a couple of moments to make this whole experience a lot more interactive. And so I'm going to share my screen, and I'd like us to actually take 5-10 minutes and think of one or two people who have made a huge difference in our legal or professional career, and take this moment right now to acknowledge them, to thank them. And so there are two ways of doing this. I'm going to share this with you on the screen. How do I do this? Share screen. All right. You can get, okay, let me add my screen here. Oops. Great. let's express our appreciation to people who have made a bit of a difference. So I'd like all of us to take maybe 5 or 7 minutes or something like that, and write that text message, write that email, and send it out to that one person who has made a difference. And I think, as Lena said, it doesn't have to be a woman. I think it could just be a person-in-law. It's not about women or men, but someone who has made a difference. Take a few moments and actually share that appreciation with them. And if you want bonus points, and bonus points is just more warm hugs from our collective, group that's listening in or will be watching the recording, put it up on LinkedIn. And if you tag us, me and Aaron, and if you use this hashtag Authentic Lawyers Summit, we're all going to be following it. Everyone that's on this channel who's listening in will be able to support you and make this post really, have more of an impact. It'll create more of a ripple effect. So this is not just about us taking our appreciation inside ourselves, but let's express it. I think this profession needs a lot more appreciation, a lot more gratitude. So take the next few moments, send out this message of appreciation either via text or LinkedIn. And when you're done, chime in the chat. It's going to go really great. We'll check in a couple of minutes on what kind of reaction you got as well. So.
In the comments, let us know if you sent one out, how it felt. If you're still writing, keep on writing. And if you're posting on LinkedIn, make sure to use the hashtag and to tag us. And let the group know. Feel free to share a link to that post in the chat so that others in the group can help support it. And again, enough of me talking right now. If you've already sent one out, send out another one. Because I think if there's one thing we don't do enough of, it's expressing that gratitude that we all know we feel. for those mentors. Somebody dies and suddenly we're like, oh, they were amazing, they were the kindest person. Where is that? We got to do a little bit more of that during every day. And I think sometimes we forget to say how we're really feeling. And I think many of us here are those kind of mentors or sponsors to other people. And it's always so nice to hear that appreciation. So again, take another couple of minutes to do that, and we'll get moving on the upcoming talks shortly. All right, if you're still sending out a message, feel free to keep doing that. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, and we're going to have plenty of time to send out more of those or take a look after at some of the other messages that people have sent. So I am extremely grateful to be able to introduce our next speaker, MC Sangaila. MC is incredibly impressive. She has been ranked amongst the top 100 women lawyers in California for 13 years. She's an equity trailblazer, according to the National Law Journal. She's the former inaugural chair of Buchalter's Appellate Practice Group and one of a handful of female and Hispanic appellate practice group leaders nationwide. She's also the creator and host of the Portia Project podcast, which she's going to be talking about today. And what her podcast does is it profiles trailblazing and leading women, judges, and lawyers with the goal of inspiring more women to join the profession and the bench. And it's been so impressive that it was named a finalist in American Lawyer Media's California Law Awards this year for innovation in diversity and inclusion. MC, the floor is yours. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Aaron, and thank you, DeWall, for both of you for putting together this conference. It's so cool, and I really loved the project you were just doing where you're encouraging people to say thank you to those who had mentored and helped them along. It's so important to do that. So I like that you take really measurable action steps. You guys are great. So I'm very pleased to be presenting really for the first time the takeaways from the Portia Project. As Aaron mentioned, I created this podcast and I'm the host of it. It started this year in 2022. And at this point, I have now interviewed over 120 women judges and lawyers in the United States about their careers, many of them starting as early as the 1970s, graduating from law school, all the way up into the 1990s and 2000s. So there's quite a range, 50 years of history on individual stories of women's career paths. women who have been quite successful, women who are state Supreme Court justices, federal judges, general counsel, law firm managing partners, entrepreneurs, legal tech entrepreneurs in particular, and those who also are using their law degrees to run nonprofits and to run even art museums. So this is a very successful group of women, but all of them have talked about their challenges in getting to where they are now. And I think there are a significant number of takeaways from their stories collectively. And so I'm going to share 3 takeaways I think that are really for women individually, what women can do in their own careers, and then 3 takeaways for law firms and other organizations that want to retain and encourage women. So that's where I'm going. But first, I wanted to give a little bit of a really overview of progress, women's progress, as shown from those who entered the profession in the 1970s and even the early 1980s. So Christine Durham, who was the first woman judge in any court in the state of Utah, and ultimately the first woman on the Supreme Court there and the first female Chief Justice, she talks about graduating from a very prestigious law school in the 1970s. And when she went to apply for certain positions, there were actual notices on the notices for the jobs that said, men on law review need only apply. So we're glad we're past that point. And even LA Superior Court Judge Christine Bird, who prior to joining the bench was in the U.S. Attorney's Office, was also in some very large law firms, ultimately as a partner. But she said when she graduated in the mid-1970s from law school, many judges were cautious, would not hire women as law clerks. And when she first came out of school, and even for a few years afterwards into the early 1980s in Los Angeles, in the West Coast, which is seen to be more progressive, large firms did not hire women for partner track positions at all. They said, well, you might stay here for a couple of years, but you're not going to be here long term with the firm. So that changed over her career, and thank goodness. It also that I entered law school in the late 1980s. In the early 1980s, it would have been a very different experience. So from that history and some gratefulness that we're not at that point anymore, there's still a few takeaways and some guidance that the women have provided to other women. So first is be intentional about your career choices. And I think that when we're in law school in particular, we just think, oh, we're going to go to a law firm, or we're going to go to government, or there's a particular path. And once we're there, everything sort of has been solved. Everything will just unfold naturally. But these women who have been successful have been quite intentional, whether it's Ann Kapler, who's the general counsel of Prudential Financial, talking about making in-house moves to different companies because she wanted to learn particular leadership skills from particular general counsels, that there was something in particular in her skill set she wanted to add, and she thought that these leaders would exemplify that and would be able to help her out in that regard. Christine Bird, also who I mentioned, she moved to the U.S. Attorney's Office from law firm originally because she wanted to get trial experience. That's a common refrain, especially early in the 1970s, 80s, and even 1990s. That is the place to get a lot of trial experience and to bring that back to a law firm. And so that's what she did. She was intentional about doing that, but also intentional about moving between firms and using that to say, I'm not going to ask any favors of firms to make me partner. I'm going to make myself basically irresistible to make partner. And that's what I'm going to do by getting the trial experience. And then another example of this is Arkansas Supreme Court Justice Rhonda Wood, who, when she was a practitioner and had her own small firm before joining the bench, there were brand new laws coming out, HIPAA laws about medical privacy, and she saw a real opening there for a specialty in her practice. There weren't going to be anybody who had more experience than her in this because they're brand new laws. And so she could get up to speed very quickly and become the expert in that area. So I would say look for areas like that are developing. There are no established experts, and you can become that expert very early on. And then also, I think that a lot of the things I've talked about have been really analytical, intentional efforts. Melissa Hart, who is on the Colorado Supreme Court, has a little different approach to some of her career decisions, a little more intuitive, that she felt, for example, at a certain point that it was important that she come back to Colorado, that she be with her family and close to them. And that led to a series of events that led to her joining the Colorado Supreme Court. If she'd stayed in Washington, D.C., that probably wouldn't have happened. So those are some examples of being intentional and making choices that are right for you at different junctures in your career. The second point for individuals, for women themselves to think about, is to be open to new opportunities. We always have plans and goals. We're very deliberate often about where we're going, but sometimes there are opportunities you haven't considered that might come up. And an example of this is Alaska Supreme Court Justice Susan Carney, who had been a public defender in Alaska for decades and really enjoyed her job, but was approached both by the outgoing Supreme Court justice, other people in the community, prosecutors, police, as well as defense lawyers, encouraging her to apply for appointment to the Supreme Court. And now she's there. But that was never something that was on her radar. So be open to opportunities where you can contribute and make a meaningful difference. The third action point is to pay it forward. And I mean by that in a very tangible way. Erin was talking about mentors, and they're very important. The way that you pay those mentors back very often, other than being grateful, expressing gratitude, is to mentor others. And I have just the best example of this from the podcast, which is both intentional and very tangible. Patricia Hunt Holmes was one of the first women partners at Vincent & Elkins, which is a very traditional firm in Texas. And when she was retiring, she was leaving the practice, she left her clients, which were quite sizable, with a woman who was of counsel with the firm. And this woman would not have made partner without those clients. You need a client base usually to become a partner. And there were other partners in the firm, male partners, who were kind of interested in Patricia's clients, trying to take them out to lunch, golf with them, things like that, knowing that she was retiring. And she went in and told them, you can keep my clients at the firm, but you must give them to this woman. They must be on her part of the ledger. If you don't do that, I can very well disperse these clients all over town to a bunch of law firms. So it's up to you what you would like to do. And they made that woman partner, and she got the billing credit. So thinking about that, using our individual power and institutional power to benefit others and to pay, and in that way pay it forward to the mentors who have supported us. So those are 3 things for women themselves. Now, a few things for law firms and organizations that might be interested in retaining and promoting the women that they have. The very first thing is to reward potential. This is something, again, that Christine Bird mentioned in the interviews. She was pretty, she wasn't emotional about it, but it's something that I've seen and I thought she described very, very well. That women lawyers often have to make a number of lateral moves in their careers. And why do they have to do that? Because organizations and those who run them are more often and more able to see maybe just a few years ahead of their potential. Whereas with men, there's a sense of a longer term view of potential for them. And so how this might play out would be a male associate is up for partner. He doesn't actually have any clients, any dollars coming in, but he's doing all the things that people recognize as being good for business development. And they say he's going to be great. He doesn't have anything now, but he's going to be great and we'll make him partner. A similarly situated female associate might instead hear, we don't know whether she can develop business because she doesn't have any clients or she has a minimal amount of clients at this point. And so we need to basically have proof that she can get clients, has clients before we would promote her. And that, I think, is an example of what Christine is talking about in terms of a shorter ramp for the future for women. And so when I say look at potential, think about it in a longer range way with regard to women, and don't require proof, irrefutable proof, in order to promote them. Promote based on their long-term and long-range potential. The second one is one we've heard a lot, we've seen in studies, but pay women what they are worth. This is something else that Christine Bird mentioned in the interview on the podcast. She said, hey, look, I pay attention to what people say to me, and they say great things in the firm or wherever I'm working. That's really nice. But when the numbers come out each year, that's how I know what they really think about me. Are they paying me fairly for what I'm contributing, or are they just saying nice things to me and thinking that will be sufficient? So, if you want women to stay, pay them fairly. And the last point is to respect women and respect them by providing them with leadership and growth opportunities. The ABA study, Walking Out the Door, which was by Bobby Liebenberg and Stephanie Scharf, which came out a couple of years ago, studied this phenomenon of women who were quite experienced, 15 to 25 years out, leaving firms in droves, whether they're leaving to start their own firm or they're leaving law altogether. And why are they doing this? This is right at the point where you would be the most lucrative for the firm and for yourself. And what they found was that they were lacking access to additional business development opportunities, leadership. They were denied or overlooked further promotions. I put that in the category of growth. Everybody wants to be growing continually in their careers in addition to being valued. And what happens when this happens and the senior women leave at this point, the younger women, the newer women in the firm look and see that, and they say, that doesn't look so good. I don't know that I want to stay. I'm going to do something else, whether it's starting my own firm or in some cases of the legal tech entrepreneurs who are quite new in their careers. Many of them are in their 20s and 30s, women who have started quite well-known legal tech companies. They say, hey, we saw what was happening to senior women, and we voted with our feet and decided we were going to found our own companies and blaze our own trails. So this has a downward effect with regard to retaining women. So this is a cycle that law firms can stop by treating women with respect, providing them with opportunities, and valuing their contributions. So those are, like I say, not necessarily rocket science, but I think when you get the combination and collection of stories of 120 very successful women, and these are the themes that come from them, it's meaningful. So I'm happy to share that and share it for the first time here.
Thanks so much, MC, and we're so grateful you shared. I can see reactions from our upcoming speakers who are in the green room here, and just others in the comments. That resonated so strongly with so many people. I've got a quick question for you. You got to talk to all these incredible, I'm going to say trailblazers, which is probably, I think, a good word to describe a lot of these women who, it's not great now in this profession for women, but obviously it was even worse, as you sort of alluded to before. What surprised you, I guess, from the stories you heard? Were there surprises as someone who sort of lived through some of that? Or I'm curious, these people that seem like they got it all figured out, we all know that journey probably wasn't easy. Anything that surprised you?
Yeah, well, I'll definitely say it surprised me that's why I was talking about the earlier stories. I was so close to that, like the difference between the early 1980s and being in law school in the late 1980s and graduating early 1990s was vastly different. Like if it had just been a few years different, I would have faced some of these same things. No federal clerkships, you'd have to find a way around it. And what a lot of these women did was they said, well, there was a wall, but we didn't take that as a no forever. We found a way to go around the wall. We found somebody else who would recommend us for things. We found how we would get our skills, which was often through government work, because that was where there was more equal opportunity. So fortitude and courage of these women who just really, that's the way it was. So they just had to move forward. I was pretty amazed by that.
Amazing. So definitely check out that podcast for you listening. It is fantastic. We throw in some links in the chat. MC, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank
So
you so
great hearing
much, you
from you.
guys. I really do love what you're doing. This is awesome. And I really love taking it, taking the reins yourself and just talking about issues from the heart that affect all of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us. And on that note, I'm removing you from being able to talk. That's my power as a man in this industry, which is the problem here. And I say that, of course, sarcastically. I'm only doing that because we have such an amazing lineup of speakers. And next up, don't worry, we're promoting another person here. We've got Marianne Zaki. She is, speaking of what MC talked about, someone who's not afraid of speaking out and someone who's not afraid of taking matters into her own control. So Marianne is a former big law lawyer who called, in her words, BS on the legal industry when she quit in July 2022, which is only a few months ago. She says she was tired of the lip service being paid by firms who pretended to care about women or diversity. So she left and started her own law firm. And she hopes to inspire her 3 young girls to make a difference, truly, in this world. Marianne, over to you. I cannot wait to hear what you have to say. And I'm sure there are going to be people not tuned in today, but others who aren't going to like it. But it's a message I know that needs to be said. So over to you, and I'm done talking.
Thank you so much, Aaron and Dewal. Seriously, just tuning into this summit so far is just so impressive. And the way that you guys have organized the speakers and really, selected so many of us that have a story to share, that feel like we really have something to contribute, and to do so in a safe space. And to know that we are taking risks, right? Calling out the profession and saying, well, you present yourself as caring about women and diversity, but then why are the statistics so bad? Why are your women leaving? Why are your diverse lawyers leaving? And for you to just create a place like this for us to speak openly is truly a beautiful thing. So as you mentioned, Marianne Zaki here. I'm a lawyer in Houston, Texas, and I started my legal career in 2013. And did what I thought I was supposed to do. I interviewed on campus interviews, OCI, tried to get a great job, 6-figure paying salary right out of law school, and landed at a great firm. But sort of throughout my legal career, kind of always felt, okay, well, I'm ready to go to the next step and I'm ready to go to the next firm, and made my way up to big law, got great experience throughout the process. But I really started to see a disconnect. Every day there was something new on Law 360. Women are walking out. We care about diversity. I'm seeing things from the firms I'm at, the web pages that say diversity is so important to us. But oftentimes I'd look around and either be the only woman or the only person of color and really just be confused by this mismatch. So as you mentioned, Aaron, in July of this year, I just recently said, you know what? I'm tired of trying to make all of these conflicting messages make sense. And frankly, I'm just taking myself out of the equation. So that's what I did. And, I've told people starting a new practice is equal parts terrifying and equal parts exciting. But just even hearing from Lena about her experience building her own law firm, truly, I agree with everything that's been said, that sometimes you just need to see other people do it to believe that it's possible. And what I tell myself is every great law firm started somewhere. It started with 1 or 2 people saying, hey, let's do things different. And I think the more that we do that and we create something different, the more that this profession can really be what it's intended to be, which it's a great profession. I mean, we get to help people in terrible, sometimes situations. And I think that is such a gift. So I know I only have 10 minutes or so, and I've already burned through some of it, but what I've done is written a poem. I don't know. I think, for those of you who've kind of seen my LinkedIn activity, I think sharing our experiences sometimes is the most powerful way to, I guess, get validation that it's not just us. And these are pervasive issues that are throughout the industry. That's why the studies that MC is referencing. I mean, this is why it's such a talked about topic, is because we're not alone. I mean, this happens to so many of us. So anyway, I've felt it therapeutic to share my story, and I've put together a poem that I wanted to share with you. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read, but I'm going to look straight into the camera, so hopefully it's not too distracting. I've titled this, They Say. Go to the best law schools, get the best grades. Go to the best law firms and make the best salary. Try not to burn out. Most people only last 1 to 3 years. Somehow I lasted almost 10. Billable hours. There's no minimum billable hour requirement. Just make sure you bill 2,500 hours a year. Don't take on too much work, but never say no to a new assignment. Go part-time, just work full-time hours for less pay. Come to us if you feel overwhelmed. We truly do care. God forbid if you do, though, we might take all of your work away. Oh, diversity, we love this. Be yourself. We just might not like it. We like what makes you different, but we might steal it from you, kind of like Ursula stole Ariel's voice. Be the best advocate for your clients. Just God forbid you advocate for yourself. We'll use you in pitches for our own benefit. Don't be surprised if you never even know of it. We'll pay for expensive diversity initiatives, but our statistics reveal our truth. Kids are amazing. We offer 6 months of maternity leave. Just be careful if you use it. It's fine to have kids. Just pretend that you don't. The law requires you to have a private space to pump milk for your children, but we'll lock you in your office instead. Make enough money to support your kids, or stay home and not have enough money. That's the dilemma. We know that it keeps us in control and keeps you from quitting. Wellness is so important. You get 4 weeks of vacation. Just make sure to never take a day off. You also get sick time. Just make sure you make up for that lost time. Participate in all non-billable activities, recruiting, summer associate, and client development events. Just no excuses. Get all of your work done. Bring in new clients, but we'll take the credit. God forbid you ruffle any feathers just trying to get what you deserve. Do the impossible. Bill 24/7. Build a competitive practice around an area of law that nobody else does. It's kind of like going to the moon and back, kind of like turning water into wine. Sounds so impossible that you think you'd rather quit? Perfect. That's exactly how we weed people out. Last but not least, don't speak up. If you do, we'll blame it on you. So I appreciate you listening to that. And obviously, it's a satirical take on many of my experiences, unfortunately, many of which are true. And I think many people can resonate with that situation, whether you're a female, a diverse associate, honestly, even if you're a white male, where you're feeling, okay, the firm is talking about wellness and, taking care of myself, but here I am grinding 24 hours a day and it's just never enough. So I think we can all relate to a lot of those things. And, I hate to leave the conversation as being one that sounds so dire, but so of course, as any lawyer, we try to think of, okay, what are the solutions? And when I think of what are some things that we can offer as solutions, number one, stop the conflicting messaging. If you're a firm that's prioritizing wellness and mental health, don't give people a 2,500-hour billable hour requirement. I've always told myself and told others, I don't see wellness when there's 2,500 hours billable a year. I mean, you don't even have time to sleep at that rate, let alone go to yoga or take a walk outside. Other things too, if your lawyers go reduced hours, true them up. If they work 250 hours, but you're really only paying them for 130, pay them for that extra amount. There are firms that have done this and I commend them for it. Unfortunately, there are so many firms that have not accepted this true up policy. And for me, frankly, I can't seem to understand why that's the case. Give associates billable hour credit for diversity, for wellness. It sounds so simple, but give people real vacation or sick time, right? I mean, I was out for COVID twice, and both of those months I billed more than other months. And truthfully, it's almost like, well, if you take a week off sick, you're 40 hours behind, and you need to make that up before the end of the year. So I think there are real problems, but I think just through conversations like this is the only way that we can call out the hypocrisy, frankly, call out the BS. And really come up with solutions and ways that we can move forward. So I just appreciate being as a part of this group and really just appreciate everything that's being done here. Like I said in the beginning, truly believe it's an honor to have law degrees. It's such a privilege, frankly, to be able to advocate for people. And let's just not forget to advocate for ourselves. So really appreciate you having me here today.
Dan, thank you, Marianne, so much for joining. I mean, in that chat, I don't know if you were seeing the comments as they come in. Probably not, because I know you were busy talking. But take a look, in a second, at just how much that was resonating with people. It resonated a lot with me. I cannot even imagine how much it resonated with other people who have a lot more lived experiences similar to you. So keep on speaking out. The profession needs more people like you who are speaking out in all these things that people are saying and thinking. And you and I, when we spoke before the summit, we're talking about that and how terrifying it is sometimes for you or for me to speak out, because we know there are potential repercussions. there are people with a lot of power in this industry that don't want to hear these kind of things. And I think it's a challenge. The more people that speak out, the more power there is in numbers. And I think you're inspiring so many people, and there's just so much gratitude here. And I think, more and more people are going to hear this message. So thank you so much. This was fantastic, and I'm so glad you joined us. And again, take a look at those comments. Dowell's loading them up as we go. All right, I wish we had all day, but we don't. So our next speaker coming up is another amazing woman in law. So we're going to be joined momentarily by Elena Deutsch. Elena, I should say. She founded WIL, which is Women Interested in Leaving Big Law, or law in general, in 2017, and has helped over 100 women lawyers, plus a few men and some non-binary people, shed the shoulds, create clarity and relief, and infuse their true selves into careers and lives. She's led workshops for bar associations across the country, and her work has been featured pretty much everywhere. Above the Law, American Lawyer, Wall Street Journal, you name it. So Elena, come on up, and I'm so excited to hear what you have to say.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks so much for having me. This is an incredible Dewal. Thank you so much for hosting, for taking this from idea to action. And that's essentially what I'm going to speak on. And it's just an honor to follow Marianne and MC and the other amazing women who are here. And Marianne, your poem is why I started WIL. So I am not a lawyer myself. My dad was one, and I almost went into his footsteps, but he lost his way ethically, and it felt too risky and too dangerous. And then when I became a coach, I started attracting lawyers to me, and I saw women like you, Marianne, like you, Angela, like all the women here speaking and suffering in their big law jobs, in the practice, and wanting to figure out what else they could do if staying in the law did not feel like a fit for them. So I help women and some men and some non-binary people figure out what it is they truly want to do in their heart, and whether that's stay in the law in a different capacity, like opening their own firm or going to a gentler, kinder kind of practice, or do something else. And the guiding thing that I wish for you to take away from today is that I have had this front row seat, and my heart has been cracked open. And I invite you to crack your heart open as well today, to look into it, because your desires, whether it's to stay in the practice and open your own firm like Marianne and speak out about what's been going on for you, or it's to do something different, your unique desires are your North Star. Your desires are as unique as your thumbprint. And I want to give you some examples of what has emerged through the women I've worked with, when we've kind of cracked them open and allowed them, and they've allowed themselves to desire what it is their heart is saying to them. So, for example, there's a woman who was one of my inspirations for WIL, who said, I want to go to a firm that has the benefit of unlimited vacation days, actually to a startup. And within a few months, she had that. Other things, other examples from the women I work with, what they've said. I just want to be able to take off the week between Christmas and New Year's and bake oatmeal raisin cookies with my daughters without having to check email, without having to do any work. I am obsessed with alpacas, and one day I intend to have an alpaca enterprise and retreat center. I intend to put out the very best newsletter for women and become a public speaker and author to help women feel less dead inside. I want to go back to grad school for mechanical engineering. I am obsessed with Formula One racing, and I'd love to work on Formula One racing. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the desires, of the true callings that women lawyers have under the surface, to become authors, to become astrologers, nature therapy guides. Because the women I work with, and I think so many women in the profession, like Marianne said, go into this field to help people, to do something meaningful and fulfilling. And when they hit the barriers that MC talked about, those systemic barriers, and they are there, and we've been talking about them today, and you all know them. and they get crushed under that billable hour and all the demands, and never say no and always be available, and they can lose themselves. And if you're struggling to think, okay, well, I don't really know what I want, which is something I hear so often after years of being on this one track, this one railway ticket, and you want to get off the train and you don't know what else to do or where to go. Tap into those desires. And then the flip side of that is tap into what you are not available to regret. And by that, I mean, I hear from women all these things. I feel sick when I snap at my kids. I don't want to rush through bedtime and bath time and bedtime stories, rushing and being impatient with my kids, hoping that they'll go to sleep quickly so I can get back online and finish that email. I no longer want to be sitting there with my partner when they're telling me about their day, but really in my head, I'm thinking about what I have to get back to do, and I'm half composing that email in my head. I want to have great relationships with my kids when they're teenagers. I don't want to spend another 5, 10, or 15 years in this firm where I feel like I'm digging my own grave. I've had women say things to me like, I'm scared I'm going to be traveling for work again so much and end up alone in a hotel room having a heart attack or stroke. This is the dark side of it. When we talked about mental health this morning, I think many of us are familiar with the anxiety, the depression that comes with this. So allowing yourself to look at what you are not available to regret. You're putting a stake in your ground for your desires. That's a way forward through this. The Will member who had the dream of doing Formula One racing, she is now actually surpassed Formula One, and she is in graduate school for mechanical engineering, and she just landed an internship with NASA, where she's going to be working on environmental issues. Another client has the dream of reforming and healing and improving the foster care system. So if you are a woman lawyer or a man who knows in your heart that there's something else calling to you, I invite you to write down these 2 questions and come back to them later today. 1, what would you love if you could have and do anything quickly and easily and now? Imagine money is no object, time is no object. What would you love? And 2, the second question, what I am no longer available for. I am not available to regret. And write. And let this be the key that unlocks you from wherever you feel stuck in your career, so you can be your best authentic lawyer self. I'm going to close with a quote. Marianne's poem is still reverberating in my heart. This quote is from the 20th century dance choreographer pioneer Martha Graham, and it's one of my favorites. There is a vitality, a life force, an energy that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will never exist again through any other medium and will be lost. So bring all of you to the party, to this party of life. And I just want to say thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Elena. That was truly inspiring. As I said, this segment, I think, of the summit is probably one of my favorites lining up, and just all of you, just such incredible speakers so far. Truly thank you for that stuff. And I think the message I'm hearing as well, whether it's in law or outside of law, find something that makes you happy, that makes you feel fulfilled, find that passion. And I think too often we've focused on not doing that for various reasons, different pressures. And it's so refreshing to hear this from you and to hear from so many other speakers today. So thanks again, Elena, for joining us today.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Amazing. All right. Well, we've got 4 in a row, and our next speaker here is here to talk about closing the gender gap. It is Yola Ventresca. She's in Canada, near where I went to school in London, Ontario, and she's the managing partner of a decent sized law firm. So she managed to work her way up to that position where now, thankfully, she is in power there, or at least able to, influence a lot of these things. She's an experienced litigator practicing health, education, human rights, and administrative law. And she's also the founder and lead of their workplace investigation team. And she is incredibly committed to the advancement and retention of women in law. Yola, floor is yours.
Thank you so much for having me, Aaron, and hello to all of you. I'm really honored to be at this really innovative summit, to have the opportunity to speak to all of you about this issue that is so important to me. My talk is titled Closing the Gender Gap, but to be more specific, what I'm going to talk to you about is what women mentors and those of us who are in management at our firms can do to support women in private practice. I'd like to think of this as best practices, if I might, about how to be a good mentor, a good sponsor to a woman in private practice. And I really hope that I do practice what I preach. I have the privilege of being the formal mentor to 3 outstanding young women associates at Learners. And I hope that what I am going to outline for you is something that are the things that I do in my my mentoring of these associates and as I watch them progress to partnership. So much of this is really straightforward and common sense. But to start, one of my top priorities in terms of my mentorship relationship is to ensure I'm consistently checking in with my mentees. Sometimes people like to use the sponsorship language. For the purpose of my talk, I'm going to use the mentor-mentee language. But I am checking in with them consistently, and this became even more intentional during the pandemic. They had to be more purposeful than when we were at the office, these check-ins, where the interactions were often organic in nature. But one of the lessons that I've held on to from the pandemic in terms of my mentoring style is that I'm now intentionally setting weekly meetings with my mentees where we block off time to specifically discuss their progress, their goals, and important file work. But I also use those meetings as an opportunity to get a sense of how my associates are managing. I make a point to emphasize personal well-being during the call and to inquire about their workloads. And something that I've realized for my part is that during these meetings or calls, it's also very important for me to acknowledge my own struggles in terms of the law, in terms of my practice, in terms of being the mother of an 8-year-old child, and how I'm dealing with them. And I'd like to think that in acknowledging the difficulty of the situation, I create a safe space for them to voice their own concerns and challenges. Another way that I support these women, these mentees, is by encouraging them to unplug from work and to guard jealously their personal private time. And I think that this follows through nicely from the talk that we just heard. But what's more important than encouraging it is taking concrete steps to make it happen. So whether that means that I have someone cover the work that this associate was supposed to do so that she can take time off, or that I cover the work myself. The point is that we work as a team. I really work under a collaborative model of practice. And if we all do our part, everyone on the team hopefully has the opportunity to step away from work without work following them. And that includes me. I have to lead by example. I have to be able to go on holiday and not be checking email consistently. Otherwise, that's what these young women who are working with me think that they're going to have to do too. I think that a really big issue in terms of the mentorship relationship is thinking about what has historically been a rigidity in terms of deadlines and turnaround times at law firms. So here, what I'm talking about is internal deadlines. I know that when I was an associate, what I often saw and what often were very arbitrary internal deadlines created a tremendous burden for me. And I know that they've created a tremendous burden for a lot of women lawyers and women lawyers, especially those with caregiving responsibilities. So to try to address this, I've signaled as clearly and as often as I can that flexibility has to be the order of the day. So in practical terms, that means that while I respond to work emails outside of business hours, sometimes very late at night, because that makes the most sense to me as someone, again, with a small child who sometimes is around the house. That doesn't mean that my associates have to follow suit or respond immediately. I also state expressly that I know they'll respond to me when it makes sense for them to do so, given their own particular circumstances. And the same goes for deadlines. It's often the nature of the work of a law firm that things have to be done by a hard deadline. And that's especially the case in litigation, where you may get a file comes in and you may have a limitation period coming up. But in many, many instances, there is lots of room for flexibility. Do you really need that draft 2 weeks ahead of time? Would a week ahead of time suffice? Would a couple of days ahead of time suffice? So how do I integrate that into my practice? So during these weekly check-ins, I make it a point to talk about what I'll call, internal deadlines and again, a collaborative work timeline. I'll ask the associate what works for them in terms of the completion of a given task that may be forthcoming. And in 99% of the cases, I'm able, with some forewarning, to structure my schedule in such a way so as to make the proposed deadline work. So that way, if there is, if there's a recital to attend, or if there are other responsibilities that the associate has during that time period, where they would otherwise be working on the project, we're able to provide them some degree of autonomy and flexibility. And I think that doing that, the feedback that I've had from the associates who work with me is that feeling of autonomy, that feeling of having some control over their lives, makes them think that it is possible to have a thriving practice in a private law firm, and to have a happy home life as well, whatever that means to them. And I can't really stress enough the importance of having these conversations about organizing workflow in a way that's both productive and flexible. I mean, gone are the days, I think we should really say, gone are the days where every draft must be submitted a month ahead of time. Every substantive opinion letter must be submitted 2 weeks ahead of time, just because. I really do believe that this is one of the best things that you can do for your associates, especially your female identifying associates, because it allows them to feel that they have a say in how their lives are going to play out over the next 2 weeks, over the next month. And then finally, another practical strategy that I feel is really crucial for those with influence and standing at our firms is to use that influence to advocate for junior lawyers, female lawyers, and to be seen to be doing so. I often hear that there may be women at my firm, but I don't see that they're helping advocate for me. They're not using, they may be equity partners, but they're not using that privilege that they now have to advocate for the women at their firm who are associates. So I really do think that not only advocating, but being seen to be advocating for, whether it's, parental leaves, updating discrimination and harassment policies, et cetera. It makes you someone who the associate can look up to and say, I aspire to be in a position where I can help others. And I think that for many of them, that is very meaningful, that they might one day be in a position where they can impact the lives of others. I know that it's certainly been the most fulfilling part of the work for me. And then finally, compensation. We need to make sure that women are fairly compensated, when they are on parental leave, for example, that we are taking that into account, that we are applying principles of equity when we are deciding how much that woman should take home that year. I know that that is a big issue, but compensation structure for those of us who have the ability to tackle it is a huge issue, and one that needs to be addressed and talked about frankly at every partnership table, in my view. And I've heard from many that a key part of this advocacy is really education. We have to educate the bar about the reality for women lawyers who are balancing home and work. And I guess I see air enough, so I guess I'll end by saying that this isn't a comprehensive list of these best practices, but it does comprise some of the core strategies that I've used to support women at my firm. And with that, I will hand it back over to you, Erin. I will just say that I'm happy to take questions by email or by call if anyone would like to speak.
Yeah, feel free. Thank you so much for sharing. There's so many things from what you said that resonate with me. I just want to share a few that I wrote down. So the first one I think is on the vulnerability piece. And I've read enough Brene Brown at this point to know that despite my internal desires to hate vulnerability and be terrified of it, vulnerability is the key for everything. And I think you mentioned, like the need when you're on these calls with the associates to share some of, your personal stories, your vulnerability yourself about what you're struggling with. And all the research I've read is like, if leaders are doing that, that starts this vulnerability chain. If we're waiting for more junior people to feel comfortable, you're going to be waiting in a lot of cases a long time. So the fact you're doing that is so amazing. You mentioned too, leading by example, right? The idea like, it's one thing to say, take your vacation, but if they see you as the leader of the firm taking no vacation, it implies a message that they actually can't do it. And now we're stuck with a lot of what other firms are doing where they say one thing and mean something else. So it's amazing that you're sort of doing your best for that. I love that you talked about, stating your expectations expressly on responsiveness. So similar to you, I often do stuff late at night. I've got a young kid, I take like 5 to 7:30, 5 to 8 now off every single day, no matter what. And that means when I'm jumping back online, it's at odd times. But now I always say to people, and I've learned, I'm like, I'm just letting you know, do not respond to me until tomorrow morning or whatever time. Like, this is not meant to be the thing you have to respond to now. I'm just getting it off my plate because I'm catching up on a few things. And then I love that message. Use that influence for good. And so many of our speakers today, and Angela coming up, who's going to be speaking to, they are using that influence for good, as you are. And that's, I think, the best part here is just watching all these amazing people, whether it's at our Women in Law sessions or the other sessions we're running as part of the summit, using their influence, to try to help people and not just saying, well, I had to deal with this, so I'm gonna let people go the same way. You're choosing the harder road, but the much better road, which is to make a difference in this profession. And I'm so grateful for that. So thanks so much, Yola, for joining us today and for speaking.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Erin, and congratulations on an excellent conference.
Thanks so much. All right, we're gonna take a quick couple-minute break, and then we'll be over to Angela. So if you need to use the bathroom, grab a bite, any of that sort of stuff, feel free to do so. In the meantime, I know some of you here, have CPD or CLE, you need to track. So I'm going to throw a link into the comments where if you want to just fill out that form, you can use the code 1108. Again, no requirement, of course, to do this. In many cases, it doesn't matter for a lot of you, but for some of you, that attendance matters. And I just want to make sure we're tracking. So that way, if we're asked, we can say, yep, you were absolutely here. So take a couple minutes. We'll be back with Angela in 2 or 3 minutes. And Dowell, you can play us a little music as we wait.
Step 1, wake up early, gonna rise with the sun. Step 2, get some food in you. Step 3, think real hard about what you wanna be. Step 4, everybody just do your thing.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
Yeah. Set your affirmations, aspirations. I got shit to do, the aftermath of preparation. Good food, good mood, blood in circulation. One step at a time, yeah, that's how you make it. Set a goal you control and the steps you take them. I try to pick one thought, have some concentration. And if I make a mistake, it's called education. I try to do this every day, call it replication.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. 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 Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
So life ain't easy, yo, I think there's a reason though. Ups and downs, just like every different season, yo. Sometimes I'm high, other times I'm barely breathing, though. I always gotta fight and hide from the demons, yo. Negative thoughts are poison, they rot. Head full of flies, so here come the clouds. They'll never stop unless I can swap all the bad for the good in my head when I'm lost. Yeah, so I'ma fake it till I make it. Positive thoughts are overtaken, I got patience. One day at a time is how you operate a cadence. A flow, you grow, you show yourself a foundation. Stay away from all the shit that causes temptation. I know that I like to do it cause it's sensation. I live my life in my head like a narration. Don't expect greatness, do my best, man, I'll take it.
Wake up, today's gonna be a good day. Wake up, today's gonna be a good day.
All right, everybody. So our last speaker of the day, before we get into the other parts of this segment, is Angela Han. Many of you, I'm sure, know her. She wears so many hats. I don't know how she manages to do this. She's a life coach for lawyers. She's a lawyer. She's the host of the Fit to Practice podcast. She's a parent of two. She is so passionate and authentic, and I just love everything she's doing. As a life coach, she cares about lawyers being able to navigate the profession, and in her words, while belly laughing and spending time on what they care about. In her podcast, she talks to lawyers finding their own path to being fit to practice, and Angela herself talks about how we can find joy and magic wherever we are at in our profession. She's active on LinkedIn, as many of you have seen, and also on her website and all over the place. So Angela, take it away from here. I am so excited to hear what you're going to tell us.
Yay! Thank you for having me. Okay, so I'm going to ask you guys a few questions because I think the title of this session is like discovering your own meaning of success or something. And so thank you, Patty. So I'm going to ask you a few questions about success. And what I would like you to do, what I invite you to do is share the very first word, the very first answer that comes to your brain. There's no right or wrong answer, and share in the chat. And that's what I invite you to do. And of course, like if you don't want to do it, I'm not your mom, so you do what you want to do, or you can write it down too. Okay, so here are the questions about when you see a successful person, who do you see? And these are very specific questions here. The first one is, what are they wearing? What are they wearing? Rapid fire. And if you don't want to share because you don't want to show your bias, you can just write it down too. Because this is for you and not for me. And the second question is, how old are they? How old are they? And third, what is their shirt size? A crisp white shirt. 40 years old. Yeah. 45. Wearing a dress. Yeah. What is their skin color? Immediate. Successful person. Gender preference. White. Medium size. White. Gender preference. Light skin. Good. Woman. Yes. What do they smell like? What do they smell like? Cherry blossom? Morning dew? Yeah. And very final question. Do they look anything like you? Yes, no question. Do they look anything like you? Got 2 no's so far. Got a yes. Got another no. A little no. Yes. Thank you so much for being honest. First of all, this was kind of a vulnerable exercise. As one of you said, like, I don't want to answer your questions anymore. It's almost kind of traumatizing because success is a loaded term. It has predetermined parameters on who it is for. It's a word that's been around a long time, and there is a group of people who are more familiar with it, a group of people who are more associated with it, creating a scarcity where it's available to only a certain group of people with certain qualities. And that's why I don't like the word success. The word also implies that there is a failure. Like, we're always in a state of either success or failure. One is positive, one is negative. One is superior, one is inferior. So the success-failure binary is a false binary. Like, are you going to say, like, an orange is more superior to an apple? But it's a false and useless construct where we learn to shame ourselves when we are not in a state of success. And the reality is we cannot shame our way to anything desirable. Like, if you say you're dumb for not liking strawberry ice cream, that doesn't make you like strawberry ice cream. So when we say you're doing something wrong for not being successful, it's like saying you're failing because you're different. So we start shaming what makes us different. And that keeps us caged and needing to fit into constructs like the failure-success binary that were never ours to begin with. Thanks, Patty. So let's create our own, okay? Instead of success, what feels more like you? Instead of success, what feels more like you? And here's just a random set of words that just came up for me. And I invite you to think of any words that come up for you. Okay. Icon. Enchantment. Magic. Sparkle. Art. Masterpiece. Antidote. Play. Delight. Radiance. Royalty. Love. Mystery. Wonder. Adventure. Absolution. Electricity. Expansion. And if you want to share in the comments, is there a word that just like popped out at you? Or while I was talking, was there another word that just slammed you out of nowhere? Or if you're in a place of like, oh my gosh, I don't know like what the perfect word is, that is okay too. but something is moving in there, right? So if you can't find your word here, I also want to invite you to go on like a word scavenger hunt. And that feels fun, doesn't it? Like it feels fun to me. Like I'm always on a word scavenger hunt. So the reason I listed some of these examples is like, which word is the word where you go, yes, I see me, I see myself when I think of this word. Purpose, icon, fulfillment, devotion, acceptance, genius. Yeah. Love these words. These are your words. You see you in these words. It's not some made up construct. You made them. And some of these words, like it doesn't have to be just one, right? Some of you listed like more than one, which is great. And you can even combine the words together. Like electric masterpiece, radiant adventure, delightful mystery. And the question I want to ask you is, does electric masterpiece really worry about a typo? How does radiant adventure approach a difficult conversation? How does delightful mystery handle mistakes? How does delightful mystery handle comments that question your integrity? How does delightful mystery handle unsolicited feedback? Do they approach it with shame or do they approach it with curiosity? There might be a part of you that's thinking, okay, great, I'm a delightful mystery, and this is just a placeholder right now. I'm a delightful mystery, but there are still things I want to do. Like, I feel like I'm not really good at these particular things. Like, I want to grow my clientele. I want to be better at writing. I want to be more authentic, like the title of this summit. I want to feel more comfortable in my career. I want to be more confident in my career. I don't really feel like a delightful mystery when I'm in this stuck mode. So if you're asking, how do I blank, like how do I get better at writing? How do I grow my business? How do I get more confident? Like, I actually want to ask you right now, what are some questions that you have? Like, okay, like I get that I like this is my new definition of success, but like I need to also reach these milestones to really feel like it. Like, how do I? What are some of those questions that you have here? I would love to see in the comments, like something that you always like wanted to improve on, something that you feel like you need to improve on, maybe something that you're just getting started with, something that like you regret not really having spent much time on. And while I'm waiting for those questions, I'm just looking through ascendancy. What? That is amazing, Megan. Radiant icon. Stop. That is so good. Kind warrior. Wonder. Oh my God. See, it's just so good here. How do I grow my client base? Yeah. How do I ascendancy, be authentic, and still make money? Great questions. Great questions. And now I invite you to ask, replace the how do I with how am I already? How am I ascendancy already being authentic and still making money? How am I already growing my client base? How are you already doing it? By the way, I think we're all like a part of us, all of us, we're all delightful mysteries in some ways, because we're constantly like evolving, constantly discovering these different preferences. Like one day I do like strawberry ice cream, but the other day I'm like, it makes me puke. Like we surprise ourselves every day, right? Yeah. The only reason you're asking, how do I, is because you are already doing it so well that you have a good enough taste to ask, how can I be even better? Okay. So brag away. Tell me all the ways that you're already really awesome. Okay. All right. And even after you find that evidence, because we have lawyer brains, you may see the part of you that is saying, well, I'm not doing it that well. Okay. I'm not doing it that well. Yeah. I brought props here. Let's say it's this parrot. Angela, yeah, like you're growing your clientele, but you're not doing it that well. You really need to write better. You really should get it together. So this parrot over here, bring it closer to you, and then tell this parrot, fuck off, and just throw it across the room. Okay? And I'll tell you, the reason we want to reject this witness, this parrot, is that its only purpose is to shame us. That's its only purpose. There is no other purpose. Yes, women have historically been shamed more, so it can be more challenging to unshame ourselves. Like I still haven't unshamed myself 100% after putting a pot of hot boiling water on the table last year, where it was like my toddler tipped it over and she burned herself. I still haven't 100% unshamed myself. So I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm a delightful mystery, so I'm just going to overcome all my challenges. Like that's not, I'm going to hold myself through the trauma, all the ugly emotions, the freeze state of my nervous system. But the shame itself, the parrot, I'm sorry, parrots all over the world. I didn't mean to shame you parrots. But the witness pointing its finger at me throughout the whole process, I will not have it. But what I will have is an undivided and untouchable knowing that I am delightful mystery and unconditional. I'll give myself unconditional approval for it. And the best part is that I can change that name, that how my own construct of success, whenever. I can change it anytime. Delightful mystery will be open to that change. Kind of like the way a toad is not going to stop being a toad just because a goose is like, you're not a toad. You will always still be that delightful mystery, or however you identify your success. So when you create your own illustration of success based on who you really are, notice where you're already doing the work, where you think you're not doing enough, and you hold yourself through all the shitty experiences and unshame who you are. You see these tangible effects, like managing your anxiety because you're now looking for evidence of who you really are rather than what you ought to be. You get things done because you know why you're doing them, not because you need to, and you needed to do it for someone else. And you trust your instincts and spend way less time second guessing your words and your actions because you know your bigness beyond mere success allows you to handle anything. So you already got so much done in this life with a lot of shame, judgment, and resistance flowing through your vessels. Just imagine how much more is possible when you free yourself from all of it and remember who you really are. That's it from me.
Amazing, Angela. I'm gonna highlight EJ's comment here. There we go. Where is that one? Is it popping up? Oh, I did that wrong. There we go. That one's for you there. Is this recorded because I have so many lawyer friends I need to send this to? And the answer is yes, we're recording this and we'll be sending it out to anyone who's registered. So if you're tuning in right now and haven't registered, definitely register so we can make sure to get you those links. I know some people who are watching on LinkedIn, they were looking for the CPD form. So I throw it in there. Angela, that was fantastic. I am so glad, as always, that you joined us, taking time out of your busy schedule. And I'm so excited for all the work you're doing. I didn't realize you actually, it looks like, made a little career move there a couple months ago. And we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, offline here. Dowell, come join me up here because we've got a challenge we're going to do. But Angela, thanks again for doing this, and we'll collaborate lots more soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I got to give kudos to Angela because she was actually one of our first guests, if not our first guest on the Build Your
She
Book
actually
podcast.
was our first guest. That's right. Yeah,
she was our first guest. So she is a giver, and you could really tell from the session that she was just like, the comments are going through the roof. Everyone's loving it. I got so much out of it. I can't wait to share this with my wife, because a lot of the stuff that Angela, you spoke about, resonates so deeply. And I don't think it's about women-in-law or men-in-law or anything like that. I think the questions you're bringing up, questions about shame, questions about authenticity, questions about kind of having an image of typically speaking, an older white man being the symbol of quote unquote success is so ingrained in a lot of us. And I think we need to find our own words, our own definitions. But at the same time, I think there's an element of structural issues, as we've discovering with all the talks we've had today, in this profession. And it's time to actually start challenging that as well. And so one of our hopes in this summit is to go beyond just talking about us and us advocating for one another, but to actually address systemic challenges that are happening in this profession. And so one of the things we're trying to do is ask people, what is the narrative of a woman's role in the legal profession? What do the firms actually say? What does your organization actually say? It could be your law school, it could be your law firm, it could be something in-house, whatever that is. What is the story they say? And what is the actual ground reality of how you perceive it, of how your friends, your colleagues, they actually perceive it? And quite often when we've done this in the past, we've seen there to be quite a large dichotomy. And I think it's worthwhile to actually record that. And then our hope is that with time, we can go back up to these organizations and say, hey, the narrative that you're actually saying and what the actual lived experiences is quite different. Let's hold you accountable. Let's change these things at a structural and systematic level. So to make this happen, I wanted to share a link in the chat. And I'll put this here just a second. If you click on this link, and it's the authenticlawyersummit.com/women-in-law, and you click on the challenge button, just the challenge, don't press anything else, just the challenge button, it'll take you to a Google form. And we'd love for you to actually, when you have some time, you can do it right now. It'll take a couple of seconds to do it. Please go up there and actually share your insights. What does your firm say? What does your organization say? What is your lived experience? And then name the organization. By the way, this is completely anonymous. No one is looking at it. Even we can't look at it. We don't know where you're coming from. But please fill this out because I think we want to, do something with it. Aaron, I know you have a bigger story here as well.
Yeah. So I think when we look at all these, when we look sort of at the summit, what Dowell and I want to accomplish, it's great for people to hear amazing talks. And I think that this session and the one this morning were fantastic. This morning, I know that we're going to literally save a life or two, or somebody's career is going to take a turn for the better because of the stuff we talked about on the mental health side. I know today so many people, men, women, others, were inspired, and they're going to take it. Someone will take action in a positive way for the career. So that's awesome. That makes me happy inside. My cold heart gets warmed up a little bit, but that's not enough. We want to do something bigger because we know at the end of the day, as Dowell said, these are systemic problems in this profession. And if all we do is reach a small audience here, that's just not good enough in my mind. And maybe that's being hard on myself, but I've got, larger aspirations to drive change here. And so part of what we're going to be doing post-summit is not just leaving it here. I feel like so often in conferences, you hear a bunch of great talks and then it ends and you go back and you're inspired for a day or two. And then it's back to normal, back to the realities of here's how I'm being treated and my mental health isn't cared about and this and that. We don't want it to be that way. And we know things aren't going to happen overnight. But so while we're trying to do our part here, we also want to really drive some systemic change after. And so what you're submitting will be helpful for us. And we're also going to be looking for people who want to help out with some of the campaigns we want to run with the sole goal of trying to drive real systemic change in this profession, one that we know is very reluctant to change, but where we all can, I think, agree that so much change is needed. But Dawal, back to you here.
Yeah, a lot of people have been asking us, like, how did the two of you put this all together? It's just two of us, and we've gotten a list of 30 speakers. We've gotten more than 1,000 people who signed up from across the globe. I know not everyone is watching this live. A lot of them will be watching it online, and I think it's we're letting the best ideas rise to the top, right? When you embrace good ideas, when you embrace good people, and you bring them in, incredible things can happen. And I think that's something we have learned, Aaron and I, running Build Your Book, working together at Renault & Co. It's about embracing our authenticity and using that to do our work and really shining a lot more. And so to make that happen, one of the things that we've been doing, and I'll share this just for a moment here, is running this thing called Authentic Lawyer Branding. And if you want to learn a little bit more about it, please go on here. The link is on this authenticlawyersummit.com/women-in-law. It's a cohort we run. We run it only a few times a year. It helps you find your brand. It helps you find this thing that, Angela helps you find that inner fire, that voice that helps you articulate yourself to your own heart. And then we help you take that thing and bring it out to the external world to help you build an incredible career, help you build content, help you build better business development skills. That's one of those themes that kept coming up. Business development is an issue for women in law. So this course has helped tons of people in the past. We know it's made a huge difference for a lot of people. In fact, if you were to scroll down, you can read a lot of the testimonials from people who are actually listening in right now. And we help you do this. So the next batch is running January 18th. It's just for women. There's no one else involved. It's a safe space where you can come in and really have this discussion and discover your own brand. And we've had some incredible reviews coming out of this. I think the last time we ran this, 9.7 out of 10. So it's a really high value course. We run this only a couple of times a year, and this time we've decided to make it focus just on women to give them that safe space to come in and talk. So it's a great course. I hope you look forward to it. Aaron, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we've had such a pleasure putting on the summit, running the courses we've run in the past. And I'm just so grateful for everyone who's taken the time today to tune in so far to this part of the summit. To obviously all the speakers, thank you tremendously for everyone chiming in the chat, staying engaged, listening, who's been sharing on social media. I think we all know this is free. We're doing this out of the goodness of our hearts. I mean, we're actually not even the goodness of our hearts because we're just passionate about driving change. And, to all our speakers today and even more coming up who are just sick of hearing, these stories, and they all know what they went through, and just, it doesn't have to be that way. And I'm so grateful for everyone coming today to try to drive some change in this profession. But we're definitely not done. It's almost 4 o'clock Eastern, and depending on where you are, if you're in New Zealand, I don't even want to know what time it is, the one person who chimed in. Others I know are on the West Coast. Dawal's actually in Texas today. We've been doing everything remotely the last 2 years working together. But Dawal, why don't you explain what's coming up next? Because we've got some amazing ways to keep this conversation going, get to know some different people, and have some amazing dialogue.
So far, you've been listening to speakers, you've been listening to us talk, but now it's time to give the microphones to you and actually let all of you listening in connect, talk, have these discussions. So instead of doing a boring Zoom breakout where everyone's like, hey, how's it going? Oh, I'm from this city, or I'm from that city. We have come up with a guided set of conversations that really matter, that get to the heart of who you are, some of the best advice you've received, how you can advance the cause of women's role in law. And so I'm going to, on the same page that you were looking at before, authenticlawyersummit.com/women-in-law, please go on there, and there's a button on there called Conversations That Matter. When you click on that, it'll take you to this site called Gather Around. Gather Around is a platform which is all about guided discussions. We call them games, conversation games. So you join it. We'll get the game started in just a minute or two. And once you're on there, you'll be able to, you'll be sort of cycling through multiple groups, multiple people. Cards will show up in front of you that'll ask you questions that's going to guide your discussion. You can choose what role you want to play as a mentor or a mentee, and the discussions will take you and place you in the appropriate group. So it's a very high impact way of connecting. And after you finish this discussion, you will get an email summary of the people you connected with. So if you want to continue the conversation even after the hour is up, you're more than welcome to do that. It's, once again, no obligation for you to join it, but it's a free thing. There's no other agenda there. So click on that in just a moment. And for everyone else, thank you for joining us. We have 3 more sessions coming up over the next 2 days. Tomorrow we have 2 incredible sessions. The first of which is about parenting and relationships. How do we be effective parents? How do we manage our family time, our life, and be effective lawyers? The second part, which is also from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, is going to be all about setting yourself apart with smart business development. We've got an incredible set of speakers for that. And finally, on Thursday, it's all about understanding different perspectives. What's it like for you to look at the world from a different role, a different cultural background, a different kind of socioeconomic background, someone who is from a completely different context than you? And I think the more we listen to that, the better we get at our work, the more effective we can lead our organizations, just the better of a human being we are. So we have 3 more incredible sessions to come. We're recording all of them, but please join us live. I feel you can see the energy you get when you join these things live. And for everyone else, we will see you in Gather Around. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of the day and see you there shortly. Take care.